Well, hello, everybody. This is Don with the Vlog of Many Things, and in today's interview, I have Pauli Kidd. Pauli Kidd of Nightshade and Shadowrun fame. Pauli is a vlogger, game developer, author, wearer of many hats from Australia. Pauli, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No worries. Good to see you. I always ask this question right off the bat. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your online vlog, because you have a vlog called Lace and Steel, I believe.
Yeah. So the name of the blog comes from a role-playing game I did in the way back when called Lace and Steel, and given my lifestyle these days, it seemed very appropriate. So, but Lace and Steel's been good fun. But I was sort of one of the original role-playing gamers from back in the 70s.
Yeah.
I got into high school in the early 70s and discovered miniatures wargaming on about day one. There was the Airfix book of ancient wargaming and all these sorts of things. Found a Wargames club. We were playing those, and then as this Dungeons and Dragons thing came out, it was played in those clubs. So it's like, hey, this is interesting. And it's just been my life's passion ever since role-playing games. And then we went on to Empire of the Petal Throne immediately and all this sort of thing. And I just wanted to write books and design games. So I made sure I was educated to do that. So I went on, I was always a history buff, and we traveled a lot in Europe when I was kids. And my dad was a pretty famous architect. So he was always taking us to interesting ruins and strange places. And you didn't get dinner unless you could name... unless you could name the section between the triglyphs on a Doric entablature. But so I went to university to learn literature and history and so on, and come out of it as a game designer and an author, and that's what I've been my entire life.
Now you've worked on the game. You were the lead designer and writer of Nightshade for the Nintendo Entertainment System game, correct?
Oh, yeah.
What was it like working for Nintendo back in the peak of the early days of Nintendo?
The horror.
Oh, you got to take a drink with that one.
Yeah. So I was one of the world's first actual computer game designers. So pretty much fresh out of university, I'd been helping to organize some of the first games conventions and so on here, and I would design all of the scenarios and all this sort of thing, and I was starting to design my own role-playing games. And then I sort of needed money. I still do. God, I'm poor. But there was an advert from a company that wanted someone to do games designs for computer games, and I went in and met them. And in Australia at that stage, I was it. We need someone who can actually design this. Now, part of the stuff I'd done at university, as well as history and literature, I'd gone and done the courses in the Australian military university. I'd taken their games theory courses and so on as well. So it's like, I'm really it. So I did a couple of sort of little freelance games for them. What was there? Maces and Magic, and there was a Mugsy's Revenge. On cassette, ladies and gentlemen. And they had just done the Hobbit text game, one of the faster games. Many
years ago.
Yeah. So the thing that they suddenly found was they needed someone that could do dialogue, but the mathematics and trying to cram a lot of memory into these tiny machines was kind of something that their staff could do. But the games weren't coming out very well. There wasn't someone who was looking at the higher picture. So they asked me if I would be the game designer, the one that comes up with the concept and so on. So I was doing that. So I did the Lord of the Rings games, the text games. And then as the home consoles began to arrive, Nintendo said, we'll let someone who's not in the Nintendo company do a game, but we're not going to tell you how the Nintendo works. So we physically busted one open and reverse engineered it and showed them we could do it. So I then did the first Nintendo game that was not done by Nintendo. And that was Airwolf, the theme song of which drives me mad forevermore. And we were doing them. Now, the funny thing about it was real nuts and bolts gaming, things like we had to do like the Star Wars game and so on. well, we need sound effects. So it's like, right, right. We need some decent laser sounds. All right, come down to the underground car park. We're stretching out a slinky.
Yep.
Now, hit it with the wooden ruler. That's where you get it.
Yep.
The sound you'll hear from that's because I just happen to know that's how they actually did it. So every sound effect was sort of our Foley. Every voice was us. Most pictures were actually the artist leaning over. Stay still for a minute. Why? I'm drawing your face as an attack helicopter pilot. Oh, really? So so we did a lot. The company kind of grew. It became a bit of a fascist nightmare to work with. It was these business guys took the company over and had no idea how to run a company of creatives, so they just started driving people off and running it into the ground.
Gotcha.
But the last things I did for them were Shadowrun and Nightshade.
Yeah, you were the lead designer for Shadowrun, the video game, not the RPG.
Video game. Now, we used to play role-playing games in the company. There are quite a few role-playing gamers, and there was also a cricket team for the company. So they wanted to do a Mech Warrior game, and they wanted to do a cricket game. So they gave the cricket game to the role-playing gamers, and Mech Warrior they gave to the company's indoor cricket team. So we're having to constantly ask each other, well, how many balls are there in an over? How do you play this stupid? Wait, why do these mechs keep standing knee-deep in water? Oh, well, because there's an overheating thing. Here, come and play the game. But what had sort of... I did... they wanted to do this kind of 1930s gumshoe thing called... I designed this thing called Nightshade for them. And it worked. It was for Electronic Arts, I think. But as it got to the end of it, I sat down with one of the other programmers, or rather, I wasn't a programmer, sorry, with one of the programmers, Jeff Kamenek, who's a really funny guy. And we decided this thing was kind of a little bit lackluster. So let's do the serious, straight-edged game. But then let's redo every single bit of dialogue. Let's do every description for everything you can look at in the game. And let's make it funny. Let's do a whole comedic version. And we'll send both versions into the publisher and say, I've done you 2 versions of the game. You pick which one you would like. And they went with the comedic one, which was really damn funny. That really upset the higher ups in the company. Really upset it because you've gone round our backs. It's like, I'm in charge of the project. At that point, they've made me like a producer and so on. Says no, I answer to no one. My duty is to serve the publisher, and I have given the publisher their choice on format. I've done twice the work I was asked to do, so that they will have a choice for what they feel is the best thing to go with. So I feel I've served this game well, my friends. So they're very angry. So what had happened is they'd signed a contract to do a game of Shadowrun, but they'd let it sit for 6 months without doing anything with it. They only had 6 months to deliver, so they figured that it was a sure fail. So they could put me in charge of doing that game. It's a sure fail, and then they can fire me because and of course I just gathered the other role-playing gamers, and we just did the game because it's like everyone wants to be on it. Yeah, everyone likes doing Shadowrun, so we got it done in time. And the other thing I did was, instead of all of their kind of administrative bullshit that they did, where they wasted a lot of time with meetings and progress meetings and meetings about what meetings are going to happen. I just had the entire team just work in one room. So if you wanted something from one of the artists, you just leaned over and said, hey, can you do us some kind of levels that are like all pipes? Well, what kind of pipes? Sewer pipes. Oh, we're doing a sewer level? Yeah, I can do those. Yeah, so there were no channels. You just leaned over and asked. So it was done. And it was a good game. I really liked it. It was it was kind of bright. It was funny. It did a lot of stuff. We invented a lot of things. And that's the other thing. A lot of these processes that you see in games today, we invented them ground up. So when you get something that's got an inventory or an isometric view, sort of 3/4 down from above and whatever, that was usually, little old us coming up with this wacky stuff.
It was definitely a popular game. I mean,
it was. Well, it got like, and that was a funny thing because the guy that ran the company then came out to give a speech. Says, this game might have been done on time, but I think we'll all see that this was not the way to do a game, because going against the company set formats and this and that, clearly this is a error. And he's in full flow when that Jeff Kamenek guy has come in late to work because he's gone down to the local newsagents and he's picked up all of the gaming magazines, and Shadowrun has got straight 10 out of 10 from like all 5 of the gaming magazines around the time. So he comes bursting through the door at that exact moment saying, Shadowrun's got 10 out of 10 in every single magazine. So it just made this guy look ridiculous. So yes, they found good reason to boot me out of the company very quickly.
How dare you make a game that was a hit?
So I tell people I got fired for doing my job and doing it really well. A few little lessons there. This is Australia. Never sell someone, particularly someone who's got the security keys, you're fired. In 2 weeks from now, you're through. It's like, good. I will do unto thee as the Lord God did unto Sodom. This place is going to look like a burnt ruin by the time I'm done.
Yeah. Now, along with Shadowrun, you also have authored a lot of books like White Plume Mountain of the Greyhawk Classics. You did Queen of the Demon Web Pits for Greyhawk Classics. Lace and Steel was another novel that you did. And you also did Lilith, which was for Gamma World.
Oh, well, see, I've just done my 43rd novel, I think.
Yeah, you're a prolific writer.
I'm prolific. So the first novel I ever had out was Muss of Kerbridge, which is actually based on my Lace and Steel role-playing game. And that was published by TSR when they were doing novels.
Yeah.
And TSR books were fantastic. A lot of really good people got their first shot from TSR. And I really miss them because no one's doing that now. What happened is, so once they got the Wizards of the Coast buy over, they just said, we don't do books anymore. It's not making a vast amount of hard cash. We're just concentrating on, our strengths, just D&D. So they dropped everything. And it's a shame because it gave a lot of people their first shot, gave me my first shot. And they were quite nice to deal with. So, I got books out from many other places, but was it Rob King? Rob King was the editor I had there. And he approached me and said, would you like to do a Forgotten Realms novel? Now, looks left, looks right. I'm not a big fan of Forgotten Realms. I'm really not. I found it was kind of, Greyhawk was kind of medieval. You could see the Wargamer base in it, it's kind of balanced. Forgotten Realms was always like 2 continents are sliding beneath the waves while a pair of gods are strangling themselves in the stratosphere above. It was like everything was twisted over the top. Every wizard is the most powerful wizard in the multiverse. In fact, they've made new multiverses just to fit the power of this person in. It's like, yeah, whatever, pal. Yeah. But it's wait. I'm moving to another company, so you could do a comedy D&D novel set in Forgotten Realms. And I'll just sign you one at the other company. So I did that, and that was Council of Blades, which set up a lot of the Sword Coast in Forgotten Realms. So when we just had the D&D movie, it was kind of neat. As they pan over the map and everything, I could look, hey, wait! I did those. That was blank on the map. I just filled those in. I pulled that out of, basically just invented that on the fly so there'd be a map in the front of the book. But it turned out that was actually a really quite a nice book. A lot of people, how dare you do a funny D&D book? But it was actually heaps of fun. So when they had like yet another pogrom, oh, that's right, Wizards of the Coast did come in because they turned around and they said, we want novels to launch 3rd edition. And we want these novels to kind of encapsulate the experience that actually comes from playing D&D. So they took a look and said, well, who got us good sales? And so they came to me and they said, we want you to do the lead. So they asked for 3 novels there. So there was White Plume Mountain. We want it based on classic adventures. Yep. And then there was Descent into the Depths of the Earth. But then for some reason, instead of like the end of that trilogy, they asked me if I could do Queen of the Demon Web Pits. And so those are the 3 I did for them, and they were good fun because when you listen to gamers tell their anecdotes about games, they don't tell the time when they were the butchest, most amazing thing. They tell you when they screwed up.
Yeah.
It's when everyone miscalculated the size of that room versus the size of that fireball. It's when someone gets to ask the Oracle 3 questions and like, oh, is that a question? What? Oh, was that a question too? It's always those moments that they'll tell you about. So that has to be the core of the book. It has to be the gaming experience. So that went over quite well. And a weird side thing of that was that Third Ed was in very early playtesting stage, or not playtesting, they were writing at the stage. They gave us copies. So I think I probably ran the first Third Ed campaign. We ran all this stuff. So we got some first person ever to be physically killed by a rust monster. Because the new Third Ed rust monster could do, I think it was a D4 with its beak, and it just chewed a guy to pieces. But yeah, then didn't hear from them for ages. They got very focused on again. We're only going to push a superstar, so they decided on that Drizzt kind of thing. But then suddenly there's yet another pogrom. TSR Wizard of the Coast were always a place where it's like dealing with some Eastern European country. It's like, hello, I am your Editherski. What happened to the other guy? There was no other guy. What? No. Ignore any bodies you might see floating face down in the river. It's like, okay, so you're my editor now. So I was approached to say, we're doing 4th Ed now. So 4th Ed. We want Gamma World to come out, so we'd like you to do a Gamma World novel. So I did a Gamma World novel for them, which was Red Sails and the Fallout, which was delightful because Gamma World's always been one of my favorite games. I love post-apocalypse gaming, and I fell in love with Gamma World early on. Just wonderful. But they did actually, unfortunately, part of that whole thing was they said, we want you to be our Gamma World guru. So we want you to do a regular slot in Dragon Magazine, and we want you to bring out more books, but we want you to actually take over that line and start doing adventures and so on. It's like, glad to. Hello? Where are you? So, where is who? Is nobody here? There is no one in charge of. So, oh, God damn it. They had another pogrom, and no, there is no Gamma World line of which is this Gamma World of which you speak. So, okay.
Now, you have been, like I said, you've been involved in it since literally the baby steps of especially the RPG gaming the computer gaming, early days of Nintendo. You've done a lot of stuff. You are a trans woman. So how do you face, or let me back up. What are some of the challenges that you face now as a trans woman in gaming in this? Now, it used to be largely male dominated. More and more women are coming out. How do you deal with some of the challenges that you faced and that you're facing?
It is very difficult now. So I guess to reel back, role-playing gaming gave a lot of opportunities for sort of gender exploration. I was the one, back when I was a man, I was the one that's always playing the female characters and so on. It gave you that space, which is why I think it's very important for like trans people and the community. When I came out, lost virtually every friend on earth. That includes gaming group and everything. I have no gaming group anymore. I had a huge life collapse. Some of my gaming friends took me into their house. That's it. My housemates are the only ones that remain of that gaming group that I had at the time. All gone. Some of the older gamers that I played with, way back in university days who are still around on the other side of the country, like one or two of them stay in touch. One of them is in fact sort of came out as gay years ago, so sort of he stays in touch. But no, most of them don't. They just say it's too confronting. We don't want anything to do with it.
What a shame.
And so it is very isolating because when you come out as trans, you will lose 90 to 99% of your friends, and you will lose your family. Like they say, take out a trans woman, you'll never have to meet her family.
Yeah. Now, as an advocate for trans rights in Australia, you live in Australia, as an advocate for trans rights in that country, I mean, in fact, you're just an advocate for trans rights worldwide. I mean, you're online, you have a YouTube channel. How has Australia as a country dealt with the issue of trans rights?
Right. So I guess the first thing to clear up is we sure ain't the USA. If you walk onto the Australian streets and saying you're having a two-way conversation with God, you'll be shown to a quiet facility where you can just try and relax. Yeah, look, one of the problems with American politics, someone asked why you're so concerned about it, this is because your sewage overflows into our backyard. What's happened here is the American ultra-right is incredibly well funded, and they try and fund hate groups in other countries. So what's happened is we had this massive influx of money from the USA, raised by groups like CPAC, who are now funding TERFs and white supremacists and so on, and trying to send them on tours of Australia. They've been turning up here. So Australia has been being very progressive, and we have been working our way through bringing in protections for, like, we've had gay marriage here. We had a whole plebiscite about gay marriage, which passed with flying colours. Everyone wanted it, and it hasn't been a problem. The people that lost that vote, because there are some angry kind of white Christians here, this infuriates them. So the thing they've settled on now, kind of what's happened in the States, is let's attack trans people. If we can get rid of trans rights, then we can get rid of gay rights. If we can get rid of gay rights, we can get rid of gay marriage. And, this is the snowball that they want. So they are trying, but Australians are a relatively laid back and have a fairly high sense of justice and a very high sense of community. And no one wants this except these crazy people. But we keep seeing money flung at them by America. So we just recently had this horrible British TERF woman who's essentially a professional hate speech merchant come on tour funded by CPAC to visit each city and give all these speech about, destroy the trans people. And it was fantastic because we are a difference I see here and out in the rest of the world is that we're very active. So we don't whinge about it online. We physically come out. So this woman came to speak in Perth. She thought she'd start at the small isolated towns to work her way up. She had like about 10 supporters there and about 300 of us turned up as the counter protest. So she just got... They
learned very quickly.
Yeah, we ran her off our streets, and then it got worse with each city until she got to Tasmania, and it's just basically run out of town on a rail. And then she went to New Zealand, and basically they just, where's she speaking? Over there. All right, they just occupied it and ran a party in the place, and it's like there's no way in.
Now we know that language is dynamic, and language can be very important how it's used, and as they say, words do matter. So, as a transgender woman, how do you want yourself to be referred to? I mean, should we just say that, Pauli Kidd, I'm interviewing Pauli Kidd? It's sad that it always has to say when, Pauli Kidd's transgender or a trans woman. Do you prefer trans woman, or do you think it's just more proper just to say that you're a woman?
I guess, look, so language is a tool. I'm a woman. I socialize as a woman. I live as a woman. My lived experience is as a woman. What is a woman? That is a woman. But if it's useful to call me a trans woman, that is also what I am, particularly if that lets other people who are transgender know that they've got a friend and ally out there, then that's an important flag. It lets them know they're not alone. It lets them know they can talk to me. It lets them know they've got an advocate. And it lets them know there's, in the words of my people, there's a hard old bastard who will fight for you.
So you think then, so basically what you're, if I understand you right, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but what you're basically saying is that the term trans can be helpful to other people who are trans or those who have not come out yet. Yes, as a friendly flag. I'm a friend.
Yeah, it could be a friendly flag. There's a local trans comedian, and she had a lovely thing where she was saying, "Oh, yeah, I've got an old uncle, and he keeps calling me the wrong pronouns, him,
Mm-hmm.
her, and so you're weak. I mean, you're letting yourself be hurt by words. A weak person's hurt by words. A strong person shouldn't be. So what does it matter?" And I thought about that, and I thought, yeah, he's got a point. So he wanted me to drive him round to meet his new girlfriend's family, and I introduced him to them as a recently released sex offender, and it turns out words do matter.
Words do matter. Especially those snarky little background checks on the sex offender registry. Now, I'm sure we're going to have transgender or members of the transgender community watch this video. What do you say to the young people out there, or even people that are, I'm 55, so people that are our age who have not come out yet? What advice do you give them?
Do it. I mean, I know there's fears of family and everything. It's like, if they leave you, if they cut you out of their lives, they were never your family.
Mm-hmm.
But there's family of choice out there. I mean, I was sort of raised on a very heroic ethos and have spent a life as sort of as a very high-rated martial artist and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that, like, Kendo and various other things teach you is just, ippon, no fear, no poisons. And that was very important for me coming out. It's like, I'm scared to do this. It says, no fear, ever, do it. What's the goal? Go for it. So, I think it is an act of courage, and you do have to steel it up. And you can't tell people how to do their own journey. Everyone's lived experience is the same, but eventually you're not going to be happy unless you do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you know, there's something wrong. And it sometimes just comes as a sudden dawning. It's like, oh, I think I'm trans.
Yeah.
But I have met people who are just terrified to come out and says, you cannot be, be without fear so that the Lord shall love thee.
Well, I mean, I guess, you know better than anybody about that. What it's like to come out and the repercussions that you have. And, places like Twitter, as you know, they're a hotbed of the far right. Elon Musk is now in control of Twitter. Imagine that. And Elon Musk, this is something that just is really, it's almost every day I log into Twitter and I just see his posts because he's on everyone's feed. He force feeds himself on you. He's automatically your follower.
I just sent him a message. Cis.
Yes, but that's exactly what I'm going to address. He said recently, he tweeted that the term cis was going to be considered slurs now. How in the hell do you react to that? I mean,
a right-wing absurdity again. It's like calling someone left-handed. It's like, or I don't know. It's like, I'm not going to have anyone call me Homo sapiens. It's like, well, I wasn't really going to call you Homo sapiens, but sure, pal, whatever.
Yeah,
it's like it's a descriptive. It's an adjective. Look, never mind.
Yeah,
I'm just
Elon
learning.
Musk.
Wasn't your strong point? But
that's right. It's Elon Musk. Now, what advice do you give to some young kid who's out there starting a YouTube vlog and wants to start a vlog on gaming? What's your advice to him?
For just anyone starting?
Anyone, yeah, young.
Just have a little idea about what's your purpose here, and what are your do's and don'ts going to be. What's my channel about? And what am I not going to get drawn into? And what am I going to stay away from? So there's been a lot of, say, politics, I guess you call it, in the gaming industry at the moment. There's been some real assholes and so on. But so I decided for mine, this is going to be about games. I want to do reviews of games. I want to do reviews of good games that are coming out from independent publishers.
That was actually going to be my next question. I was going to ask about your vlog, and how it kind of carries into this. So go ahead. Yeah. So
I want to bring out the indie games that people might not otherwise see, or games that have a bit more push but have some real worth. This is from the point of view of a person who's been a full-time professional game designer their entire life. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
going to be someone just saying, I think it's Jim Dandy. It's like, no, it attempted to do this. These are the tools it used. This is how well it used them. This is how engaging it was. But also, I wanted to talk about fine old games that might have just vanished in the past and maybe didn't deserve to. But I decided early on, I'm not going to go into like personal attacks against individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And if something's honestly horrifying and bad, maybe I won't review it. Maybe I'll let its badness speak for itself. I don't want to take someone's, Nazi crazy POS and review it, because it'll put more wind under its wings. So let's but finding something that might have not aged well, but has good bones and is a product of its time, that's well worth publishing. But I've had to fight to stick to it a few times as these guys have gone on their rants and raves. I've gone off. I decided I'd start telling stories too, just anecdotes, funny stories. I've been on stage most of my life, and I've been a comedy writer all of my life. I've written for Eric Idle. I've written for Spike Milligan. So I wanted to tell those funny stories, but also that kind of preserves gaming, because many of these are stories of gamers who are dead, they've left us, or stories of people who kind of left the community, or just fun times that might be forgotten. But worming their way into that from time to time, I've actually had to sort of put some things up about some of the transphobic attacks and so on that have appeared, because it's obvious it was such a strong voice out there. I wanted to counter it a bit. And of course, the whole idea of mine was, let's try and be a positive voice for trans people in gaming. There didn't seem to be one. I wanted to, but not bang on about it, but just say, here's just someone who's trans, who's clearly part of the games community. So figure out your voice and what it's going to be and what you're going to focus on, and try and stick to that. Don't go off on a herring tangent, because you might lose audience, but also there's a lowest common denominator thing. It's very easy to get tons of clicks if you're being if you're just being kind of a rumor merchant and a sniper. You will get lots of clicks, but is that what you want carved on your tombstone?
Well, I mean, your YouTube channel, when you are gone, will be your legacy, one of your legacies, and it'll be a big part of your online legacy. So, do you really want people remembering you, for just being, and because a lot of vloggers have learned, and so has TikTokers, that I can increase my view count, my click count, and my subscriber count if I am just being an absolute rumor mongering jerk. And they've learned that sells, controversy sells. People love to watch other people's train wrecks, and they want to gain from that. And that's like what I said at the very beginning, when we were talking off channel here, it's as a vlogger, new vlogger, I'm a baby in it. I want my vlog content to be stuff that people get something out of, not just go, because I mean, let's face it, if I was looking for some subs, I would do something about, the car crash of the day, you know what I mean? Or something really horrible like that, because I know that people would be gravitated to it, And
I have to say, what was the cool, as I was traveling Thailand, it was quite funny because they'd always see me and sort of like, oh, so, you'd get the, says, oh, you are high family. And it's like, well, yes, actually I was. It's like, always be a lady. Or always be a gentleman, choose to be a knight. And in the face of these idiots, it's like, well, you were in the army. I don't know if you were a gunner or a tanker, but it's like, seize the high ground. So it's like, no, don't descend to their level. I'll attack from on high, thanks. I will be more dignified because it allows me to be more crushing. So as this stuff has come in, it's like, no. In fact, for a writer, there are no negative experiences. How can I utilize this? So I'll just turn you into comedy meat for the grinder. It's like,
now your vlog is called Lace and Steel, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to link down below to your vlog in the descriptions. So make sure that people can click on it and subscribe. And, as a person who has been a subscriber for about a year and a half now, and I think you've seen my comments on your videos, I get a lot from your videos. You have a very unique way that you review. I think as a game developer, but also as a player of games, as a reader, and also as a writer of fantasy fiction, I think that you do it very fairly. And you're right, you add a very unique form of humor to it. So I guess as a last question to you, I want to ask you this. If you could interview one person on your show, one person in the world alive today, who would it be, and why would you want to interview him?
I was going to say, I don't do interviews.
You don't do interviews. That's right.
Yeah.
If you could have one person on your show, maybe even to talk about games and anything.
I would love, actually, to get together with Janelle Jacques.
Really? I hear her name. She has been in their name a lot online lately.
Janelle, I met Janelle in the way back when. Janelle did the cover for my first novel, Muss of Kerbridge.
Oh,
but
really?
I had grown up, in those early gaming days. What I loved playing were like the early Judges Guild stuff, and Janelle, in her previous incarnation, did so much art for those. So I was kind of thrilled when I heard that, my cover would be done by this person. And I went to Gen Con and met them. And it turned out that painting was their favorite painting that they'd done.
Nice.
And I loved there was a micro game. Remember the micro pocket games?
Yeah.
My favorite of those is Chitin 1, which was the Bug Wars one, which, Janelle had done all the artwork. She had all of that artwork at the con and just gave it to me. It's like, here, I've got this. You might as well have it. So I've still got that here. But over the years, Janelle's gone on and done so much more in gaming. And she'd come out, some years before I had, but it was a nice boost. It's like Janelle has, so I can. It's like, let's do this. Let's get out there and
inspiring.
So I'd love to do that. I mean, I'd also love to speak to various film heroes and so on. I'm one of those people who bumps into a lot of strange famous people, and so I've actually had my moments hoisting coffee with various James Bonds or American presidents. Managed to meet Dick Cheney and not get shot. That's a unique experience in itself.
Yes, right. Didn't go hunting with him then.
No. And something like, I don't know, did you ever get there was a wonderful old comedy in the 80s called, a British comedy called The Young Ones?
Yes.
Yeah, so when I was over in the UK working on the Discworld things with Terry Pratchett, I did the Discworld game and so on. Oh,
that's right. You worked with Terry Pratchett, didn't you?
Yeah, for years. He was a very old friend of mine. We'd been good friends for years and years. So I went over there to do the game because they're doing a computer game. I know a computer game designer, a guy who I trust. So it's like, he's going to do it. So, okay, over I went. But I met some of the young ones actors who were doing voice acting and so on. They all took me aside. It's like, we want to get into being a computer game designer. And I was living like desperately paycheck to paycheck on this project. And they're all like living in houseboats and this sort of things. Come with me. It's like, no, you don't want to give up. I assure you, you don't want to give up being a primo kind of BBC actor for my lifestyle.
I mean, I apologize. I mean, I should have asked about this. In fact, I'm going to add a question to this, and that is Terry Pratchett. How was it like working with him?
Terry was an interesting fellow. So I'd met him quite early on in my fanish days, going over to American cons. Where did I meet him? Boston Worldcon, I think, 86, something like that, 87. But I was guest of honor, one of the guests sort of speaking on games and so on, and he was over there as well. But we were the only Commonwealthy sorts in the kind of in the green rooms and so on. So we just sort of met each other, clung together, and just became friends. And so every time you go to a convention, you'd seek each other out and hang out with each other because that was kind of an ongoing friendship. And his and yeah, he was a nice guy. He came over here to Perth actually for a convention, brought his family and so on, and so got to show him round and so that's quite nice. But he had this thing where he was convinced that he was smarter than his fans because he knew he had all these very obsessive fans.
Yeah.
And they're just a bunch of kind of anorak wearers, but I'm smarter than them. None of them know anything about me, so I never have to be bothered about the fans. I was over there working, and I went into a comic store because I've written hundreds of comic books, and I was very much into. So I want to see what the local comic book indie industry was, and there's like a little carousel of kind of homemade comic books by the door, and one was called Pratchett Notes. So I pull it down and look through it, and it's photographs of Terry like taken through bushes and from behind cars, and it's got notes, and it shows Tuesday 9:07 Terry leaves his front door, gets into his car, here's a photo of the number plate, he goes to this cafe, here's what he ordered, he met this guy, they talked for this long. This guy's been identified as his agent. But here's a close-up of this thing that they've got on the table. It's like, oh, my God. So I had to kind of rush this to him. It's like, Terry, you know how you really have a bit of self-investment in the fact that you're smarter than your fans? Have you ever noticed when you go out that sometimes the local shrubs kind of rearrange themselves? Do you ever get that feeling you're being watched? Yeah, that's because you are. And you go, oh, those little bastards! So he I could see he would have problems because it's like he'd kind of reached superstar level, and there were some broken people out there. But that was it was a funny project working on that one because I knew him well, and I absolutely knew he wouldn't do a stick of work. Knew him well, and I could just see the signs. So I did what I do, and I went and I wrote all the work that I knew he was supposed to do. And of course, the publisher comes running up and says, oh my God, this thing's like the deadline's in 3 weeks. Terry hasn't done a thing. He hasn't done a sodding thing. Says, well, it just so happens that I've done 100 projects before, and I can see the signs of disaster. So I've done this for you ahead of time. So it's like, that kind of thing actually stays with me to this day. So as I've done projects for role-playing groups, I'll go the extra hard yards. I've been doing some stuff for Chaosium lately, which has been really nice.
Nice.
I've become their go-to for Japanese stuff because, like, I have been one of the long-term students with some of the very, very oldest schools of samurai arts and so on. Tenshin Shoden Katori Shinto Ryu, transmitted directly from heaven, Katori Sacred Shrine style, and all these sorts of things, which were originally done. I mean, I've been training in swords since I was about 8, but with this went like there were things that go in Katori, which are exorcism, how to combat fox spirits, and it was great for a role-playing gamer. This was fantastic, but and of course, as a historian, I've studied it in detail. So I became Chaosium's go-to for anything Japanese. So I've done cultural edits on books and things, and they've got a new Pendragon that's going to be set in Heian period Japan. So I'm the co-author of that one. So that should come out. I don't know. The new Pendragon set's just come out, so 6 months, whatever. But that's been a huge project, and that's been fantastic. Kind of rewriting Pendragon so it becomes a completely new game.
And I keep saying this is going to be my last question, but this is going to be my last question.
Oh, nice.
This is fascinating talking to you. I love it. What do you got going right now besides the project you just mentioned? What's in the cooker right now for Pauli Kidd? What's coming out? Anything game wise? Anything book wise? What you got?
So I've just finished a new novel called Dungeoneers. That's just gone off to the publisher. So what I wanted to do was the Dungeons and Dragons novel I would have been doing if they'd still been commissioning Dungeons and Dragons novels. So it'll be coming out I've got a publisher at long last. I've been sort of the grand lady of self-publishing for a long time since TSR stopped. But Perceptions Press will be bringing that out. They're a nice group, Canadian. So that's a good old-fashioned kind of dungeoneering book. It's transpositive and so on, and it's very diverse. It's very fun, and it's exactly the way we used to play D&D back in the day.
Nice.
It's tricks, it's traps, it's thinking your way out. Because our D&D was always very diverse. I've just recently put out a campaign setting on Drive-Thru called Wolf's Head Tour, which is my old high school dungeon from 1979.
Okay.
Which has
I'll put
been a
that link
riot.
down below too.
Yeah, that's been a joy because it's been constantly in play since then. There are so many people who remember with much cursing, different elements of it, but it's been constantly run. The original handwritten kind of written on foolscap while you're supposed to be doing maths class or something. It's all still there. Miraculously survived bushfires, explosions, floods, and marriage collapses and whatever. But yeah, so that's just come out. I've got quite a bit out on Drive-Thru as Kitsune Press.
Okay.
So I've got a couple of role-playing games that I've done up there. My old games are up there. So Albedo, which was the first role-playing game I put out, that's up there. Lace and Steel is up there. And the cards, because Lace and Steel was a pretty innovative game. One of the innovations was it had a custom card-based system.
Gotcha.
And also some other things I've done recently, like D20 to Yuma, which was a bit of a love letter to Boot Hill. We used to always play dungeons where you'd go through the wrong door and you'd end up wandering out into Boot Hill. So you got your magic user with the six gun and so on. It was that sort of world. And I don't know, you'll see memes going around of the Bard. They're cartoons, and there's always this kind of Bard that's managed to, like, there'll be a centaur running up, like, Daddy's obviously Shag the centaurs or Shag the dragon. Those are all done by a Swedish artist, Freddie Andersson, and he's an old friend of mine. So D20 to Yuma is entirely illustrated by the guy who did all of those, and so that's a scream. But so I've just started work on a new novel, which is actually based on a film script that I did. I've done a lot of writing for film, still trying to get those out. So that's there. But I'm also just, because I've just finished a novel, I thought, well, I should get on with this other one. I'll just tinker around with some role-playing game ideas first for a game I want to run for my housemates.
Gotcha.
Yeah, what are we up to? Page 300. Yes, an entire Bronze Age role-playing game. Because someone said, why don't you do a game that did what Albedo and Lace and Steel did and bring in kind of ties and antipathies and loves and hates, but you can also use for like grander social things as you write. Wait, we should be able to do the whole Siege of Troy on this. We should be able to do loves and betrayals and not just hitting things, but it should be simple, way simpler than I did there. It needs to be so. Yes, this is all what I'm working on at the side. Tentative name at the moment is the Wine Dark Sea, which was Homer's term for Mediterranean. And face it, you got that whole Yalbrynner as Pharaoh, or kind of, cool Minoans or Homeric kind of geist to it. It's like, ooh, what could be more fun? Babylonian stuff, woohoo! But so those are projects I'm working on, and I've just done this stuff for Chaosium, which they're holding fire on at the moment. But that is going to be called Monogatari, which is the Japanese word for an epic fable. And that was delightful. So it's me and Dave Larkins. Dave runs the Pendragon line. He'd started writing it, and then he brought me in to co-write it. And so I was the one that can obsess. I'm that person that can flick a glance at a Japanese sword and sometimes tell you who made it. So I brought in the equipment and,
Gotcha.
Swords tell you about personality, but I reshaped the Pendragon system so that now you're kind of making the world. There's a reason for everything, and as you do stuff, it actually changes politics, but politics changes what you have to do, and the whole thing evolves so that, like, oh wait, I think the court class is dying and the samurai are coming to the fore. So that's been a good thing.
Good deal.
And there's a ton of other stuff no one sees because I had to go from martial arts. I got cancer. And lost various organs. So I was suddenly told to have to bow out. So after 50 solid years of unremitting training, I had to, that's it, I'm out. They said, you can't be slammed to mats. Or I was a very high-ranked bayonet fencer and these sorts of things. Says, no one's slamming into you with...
No, you're in remission, right? Correct?
Yes, I am. So
Good.
And
good.
I'm out. So I had to keep physically training. I have to keep very physically fit or I go crazy. So I'm doing
You
dance
go dancing a lot. I know you do your dancing videos and such where you do, what type of dancing?
I am actually a performance dancer these days in Bollywood, which is
Bollywood,
an
yeah.
absolute scream.
Mm-hmm.
I also do like high heels dance and pole dance, but pole,
Oh,
neither of those are for the weak, I can tell you.
yeah.
Oh my God. So the high heels classes and so on are quite funny because I swear I'm the aggregate age of the rest of the class. You know, so,
Yeah.
all right, we're just going down into our splits now. I says, you might be.
Yeah.
I can do that once a year and only outside of a hospital emergency room. But
yeah,
right.
I don't blame you. Well, Pauli, thank you very, very much. This has been an awesome interview. I've gotten a lot out of it. I think our viewers are going to get a hell of a lot out of it. You are an absolute blast to talk to. We're going to have to do this again. I'd love to have you on my show again.
The inevitable Mr. Snoots has been
Mr. Snoots, there he is. Yep, yeah, yes, that's your little snoots that you take around to all your travels. You always do your pictures and such with.
Always do. Became a habit many years ago. He's been in submarines. He's dived in caves. He's jumped out of airplanes.
Yep, he's been with you everywhere.
And I'm going to keep. I live off these tiny little book royalties and things. So I'm like desperately poor, but I am managing to travel at the moment through some weird bits of luck. So I'm going to keep doing interviews in crazy places. So on my channel, I did some in the ruins of Ayutthaya, which was the old royal palaces and so on in Thailand. And I did some in on the River Kwai, at the bridge over the River Kwai, and I've done some in temples and so on in Bali. So later on this year, I'm going to do some in Angkor Wat. And I'm going to do some from the middle of Laos, and I'm going to do some from James Bond Island in the middle of the Andaman Sea. So
excellent. Well, Pauli, thank you very much. Again, I appreciate you coming on my show.
It's been wonderful.
Yep.
And great to meet you at last. Hooray.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you. We've been online talking quite a bit. We always kind of like cross paths online, and now we finally get a chance to talk. So, again, like I said, thank you very much. This is Don with the Vlog of Many Things with Pauli Kidd. Thank you for everyone who's watching our video. Cheers. And Pauli, I'll see you online and we'll do this again.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
Catch you soon.